Ladies, are you the one who gets it all done? Always pushing forward, always striving, in the constant chase for success. When was the last time you took a moment just for you? We are always on the go, rushing from one task to the next, barely pausing to catch our breath. What if we took a moment to pause? Imagine listening in, really listening to the wind, your heartbeat, your soul. What if slowing down was the key? A chance to discover a deeper connection with yourself. And from that connection, expand it to those you love, to the moments that truly matter. Pause, reflect, connect. It's time to live fully from the inside out. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Soulful Pause. I'm Josette Diaz, and I'm a self-awareness coach, and I am the founder of Seasons of the Soul here on Substack. And I am bringing back the wonderful Dr. Melissa Corley Carter. And so you're in for a real treat because in between our last conversation and this with Melissa, I started thinking about energy because she does energy leadership. And, it's not the kind of energy you get from a cup of coffee, yet, let's be honest, that one's real too. I mean, the kind of energy that you walk into a room with. What are you leading with in your energy? And so I think this conversation, I want to dive deeper into what this type of coaching is with Melissa and the level that you're operating from when you make decisions. This is the kind of energy that, I'm kind of interested in having a little bit more of a conversation around. And what happens when you are having those hard conversations, when you look in the mirror and decide who you're going to be today, how does energy affect all of this? So that sounds like a very exciting conversation to me. And so that's what we're going to be having with Melissa. So what if that isn't random? What if you could actually understand it and shift it? That's where we're going to dive in a little deeper with Dr. Melissa Corley Carter. So let's welcome her to the stage. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Josette. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yes, welcome back. I'm so excited to dive a little deeper into energy leadership. You mentioned it in our last conversation when we were talking about your book. And so I want to really get a little bit more information around that. And so let's just start from the beginning for anyone who hasn't heard of energy leadership. In your own words, not the textbook definition, which I know you wouldn't give me. What is what is it, and why does it matter to the women that you work with?
Great. Thank you, Josette. First, I just want to acknowledge that energy leadership is the work of Bruce D. Schneider and the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, which is where I got my coaching certification. So this was kind of their foundational work. And what I'll share here is my interpretations and lived experience of the work. And it is just so powerful. So energy leadership it's a way of shifting, it's a framework for shifting your energy and perspective in any moment or situation. And even if that's also still sounds a little too textbooky, what I like to think of it as is 7 pairs of glasses. And you can choose to look at any situation with any of those pairs of glasses. And it's a choice. Sometimes it's a conditioned thing. We're so used to putting on the same pair of glasses, we don't know what the world could look like from these other pairs. So it's really starting to learn what does the world look like from this level? What does the world look like from this level? And then making the choice of what pair of glasses you're going to put on, whether it's for the day or for that situation. Usually we kind of we wear all the different glasses all throughout the day, kind of unconsciously, but also learning how to consciously choose and shift. And the more you practice that, the more unconsciously higher vibration energy you end up in, if that makes sense, because it becomes so natural. So it's important to the women that I work with because it is really dramatically self-empowering. that you don't have to wait for someone else to change. You don't have to wait for your circumstances to change. You always, 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 always have the power of conscious choice of how you are going to show up energetically, no matter what is happening around you.
I love that example that you gave. It gives like a real relatable understanding of like what glasses you put on is how you're going to see things. And then that just conjures up the type of energy that you show up in. Yeah, that's great. That's great because that makes decision making a lot easier. You know, you can have your rose-colored glasses. Sometimes it's helpful. You might need them occasionally, at least for a minute.
It is, yeah.
So, energy leadership identifies 7 levels of energy, from catabolic, which drains and constricts, to anabolic, which energizes and expands. And when a woman comes to you deep in a low level type of energy, maybe she's resentful or stuck or shutting down, what does she actually look like? And what's the first thing that you do when a woman shows up in that state?
Yeah, great question. And I'll answer the question, and then I do want to do just a little quick run through of what the levels are. So we have an example of that.
Because I was just winging it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. But when someone is kind of in that energy, what it can look like is tears, frustration, anger, sometimes, swearing and just, just anger about a lot of things. And honestly, the first thing I do is just sit with her in it, because it's, it's not like you can't just be in the energy and, oh, let's jump to this other level and just think positively, like that's not where the person is. So you have to meet them. You have to meet her where she is. And so I think that allowing people to ramble on about, and I say ramble on because that's actually what one of my clients said, who did come to me in a very big funk. She said it was the worst funk of her life. And she was like, and you let me ramble on every week about some trigger. And it always led to some specific thing from the past. And she actually ended up, just without even realizing it, getting out of a victim mentality, a poor me mentality, and really meeting herself for who she really was, her highest potential, and was able to kind of turn that around and in her own words, heal her generational curses and her generational trauma, so where she and her son could live just a completely different life. So it's like really powerful to hear that.
That is
so
really
again, meeting someone where they are in that funk and letting them go through it and process and letting it be okay, not trying to shut it down and say there's something wrong with that, because there's not. Some part of you feels this way and it needs an outlet. It needs an outlet. So giving them that outlet, and then, kind of gently maybe making an observation, like, is there a pattern I'm observing? Or is there, a potential question to ask about other, like how else you might look at it. Now, again, that's not the first thing necessarily, but I'll say something else that I use is, and we're going to have one more conversation about quantum human design, but also quantum alignment system, which is sort of a sister practice, which involves emotional freedom techniques or tapping, which is an energetic shifting technique. I will also, if people are open to, not everyone is really open to that kind of thing, but for people who are, that's also one of the first things I do. And I find that it helps people really be able to voice things they maybe feel guilty about, or they don't feel like they should say out loud, but just getting it out creates space for new possibilities to come in.
Yeah, I think that having different techniques to rely on, especially when you're in deep pain like that, is extremely helpful. And I've noticed that, like in my own life, when I've gone through those, what we like to coin as dark nights of the soul, right? Those moments, is that I can be more willing and open to trying something new. Because you're looking for a way to relieve what you're experiencing. And if you can find different tools that help you to alleviate the pressure of the uncomfortableness, that at least give you something to do about it, I think that helps you in moving yourself through that path. Would you find that that's true?
I
as
do,
well?
I do, and I do think at some point it is important to become more comfortable with sitting in the
Yeah.
discomfort.
Yes.
But it's helpful to have a guide and to have something to
Mhm.
focus on. In the meantime, it's easy to say, oh, just sit with the
Yes.
discomfort, but until
Right.
you have some practice doing that and in a safe space, it
Yeah.
can just lead to more stress and anxiety and trauma and all the things. So
Right.
having a little steps along the way that create a little energy space so that you can then learn to sit in the discomfort kind of even on your
Yes.
own,
Right.
and know
Because
that it's never the end, that's actually an opening to something even better.
yes, absolutely. And I think that it's like the tools are not to bypass anything. The tools are
Right.
there to help continue to guide you. And
Hmm.
you make a really good point. That discomfort is so uncomfortable
Hmm.
that if you aren't used to managing yourself
Hmm.
in discomfort, you
Hmm.
can then make it worse by catastrophizing and
Right.
going down even a worse
Right.
path with
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what the tools are there for. They're there to help you kind
Yeah.
of manage that. So
Hmm.
I really love that.
Hmm.
Was there anything
I'm
else
going to
you
just
wanted to
actually
say?
turn my light on real quick because it
Oh,
got really
sure.
dark and rainy
Yeah,
outside, so
yeah.
hold on.
Okay.
Like, okay,
Ta-ta.
sorry
There
about
she
that.
is. The clouds pass by.
Yeah.
So, so now that we've kind of given people a framework around
Hmm.
what that looks like,
Hmm.
most of us have been told our whole lives to manage our emotions, right? We're in that spot where we're talking about that. So we generally kind of push them down, or we stay professional. We have to be strong. Uh, there's all of those moments where you can't cry. I mean, obviously you're
Hmm.
not crying at work, right?
I've
And
cried at
then,
work.
well, me too, but usually with the door closed and somewhere else. But yes, so energy leadership seems to say the opposite. How do you help women use their emotional energy rather than to suppress it?
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
you're using that energy rather than shutting it down.
Yes. Yes, you're using it as information, and I think I think the problem with suppressing it is, and this doesn't mean we all go and burst into tears at work. I mean,
Right.
again,
Yeah.
I have done it in public at work too. It released in a one-on-one meeting, and then another time it was, yeah. Anyway, not my best moment, but still, again, it was information,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so anyway, but the point is that suppressing it, we hear the phrase "what you resist persists,"
Mhm.
and when you try to suppress it, it just gains more power and it gets stuck in your body. And I'm a huge fan of the nervous system regulation work of Irene Lyon,
Mhm.
and she talks about like stored survival stress. And when you suppress the how your body and emotions are really reacting to something, it turns up as disease later in life.
Right.
You carry it until you can actually resolve it, so it is not
Mhm.
helping.
Right.
So it's learning, okay, what is this emotional response telling me? Am I afraid? Am I anxious? What is it that, or am I angry? Some people cry because they're angry, some people cry because they're afraid, some people cry because they just, something physical is releasing. So there's a lot of different things going on, and the more that you can actually tune into what is actually happening, and in that moment, can you feel your feet on the floor? Can you
Mm.
look and see your surroundings to kind of ground you in the moment so you don't get
Yeah.
carried away with it? So you don't want to get carried away and again catastrophize and make it worse, but you also don't want to stuff it down. So how
Right.
can you use it as powerful information to bring you into the next possible step, if that makes sense?
Mhm. I love that you put that in such a practical way, because I love that term of using your emotions as data, because
Mm-hmm.
it truly does tell you your own
Hmm.
story
Yes.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
how you function, how you respond, how you react.
Yes, yes, and the stories are key, and actually, that's something that energy leadership really helps to shift. And I will give that example, but I've actually heard that the life cycle of an emotion in your body, like the amino acids forming and
Mhm.
whatever it is that they do, is 6 to 10 seconds.
Mm,
So emotions actually dissipate very quickly. And if you continue to feel it, it is in fact a conscious choice. Well, it's not
yeah.
necessarily a conscious choice, it's a choice. And most
Right.
often it's unconscious because you're
Right.
you're retelling the story, and that re-hijacks the emotions, and then you just get into this feeding frenzy of a downward
Mhm.
spiral of just,
Right.
the story leading to the emotion, leading to the your result, leading to the story, and
Yes.
blah blah blah. So when you can learn to tell a different story,
Yeah.
then you can actually shift your emotions as well.
Yes, I think that that's extremely important to talk about because
Mhm,
what I found in my own life and in my own work has to
mhm,
do with like those emotions that then attach. You talk about story when
mhm,
they attach to belief systems that you grew up in, when
mhm,
they attach to, you know, particular themes that
mhm,
you have in existence because
mhm,
of how you grew up or whatever it
mhm,
is, that when you don't shift yourself or resolve the
mhm,
emotion or
mhm,
get it to where it's at a tempered pace so that you can manage it and
mhm,
actually dissect it enough to know what it is and where it
mhm,
comes from, it
mhm,
can really then become, it just sort of piles on with that other energy that's already been collecting.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so when it gets compacted like that, that's when it goes into dis-ease.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
and
Yes.
so then it shows up in the body. So you're going to resolve that emotion one way or another. It's either going to
Mhm,
be through you doing it or it's going
mhm.
to come out in your body through
Right.
dis-ease or
Yes.
something else.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's such an important thing that you mentioned.
Mhm. Yeah. And so the story, so I'll go through an example of to show kind of what the 7 levels are.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
example I like to use is actually traffic, because traffic is very relatable to lots of
Right.
people.
Yeah.
I just last year moved from Virginia outside the DC area. And I mean, traffic was, a character. It's something you always
Mhm.
had to plan for, and this, that, and the other thing. So if you think about the 7 levels of energy, the way they go from level 1 to level 7 in increasing anabolism, which is that kind of building, refueling energy, and also increasing in non-judgment,
Mhm.
as meaning not judging things as right or wrong, good or bad, but just letting things be as they are. Which doesn't mean you give up. There's a whole other connotation with that. But anyway, so we're going to start with, okay, you're driving home from work and it's been a long day and you're trying to get home and you're sitting in traffic, and somebody cuts you off. And so here's your 7 pairs of glasses. Here's how you might respond at each of the 7 levels. So level 1 is kind of the victim poor me energy that's like, oh, this always happens to me. So this is the woe is me level of,
Yeah.
and so there's sort of negative self-judgment and just very low energy here. And then level 2 is going to be that MFer, what a jerk. This is the anger at the other person, the level. This is the fighting energy, the conflict energy. And most of the world inhabits level 2. So if you look around, level 1 and level 2 are the
No, really?
catabolic levels and are the ones the world is mostly embroiled in.
Yeah.
This is why we're here to try to change that, right?
Right.
Um, and although we're not judging them as good or bad, all the levels have
No.
importance and advantages and disadvantages. So then level 3 is the level of rationalizing. This is sort of the rose-colored glasses, the finding the silver lining. And so this one is, and also thinking about a little bit self-focused as far as where's my win in this. And
Yeah.
this one would say, phew, at least I didn't get in an accident. So you're like, okay, cool. That wasn't great, but I didn't get in an accident.
Right.
Then level 4 is the caregiver or caretaker energy. And this is the person who says, oh my gosh, maybe they're rushing to the hospital. I hope they're okay. So you start to think what is going on for that other person.
Right.
And then level 5 is always seeing opportunities everywhere. So this would be asking, okay, that just happened. What's the opportunity here?
Mhm.
Well, I could spend more time listening to my podcast, or I could notice my hands on the steering wheel, you have infinite opportunities to make a different choice in that moment.
Mhm.
So that's the level 5 energy. And then level 6 is, so I would say levels 1 through 5 are what I consider the most practical. And for someone who is kind of just coming new to this work, those are those are the 5 to really focus on. Level 6 and 7 can sound a bit more woo, when and so I've taught this many times, and I get lots of people can be like, what are you smoking? Like, you have to be smoking something to get to these levels, and that's totally not true. So level 6 is just the level of non-judgment, saying, hey, this is just a cool experience. So like I am always guided to the perfect experience at the perfect time in the perfect place for the unfolding of my life path. So what a cool experience. Yeah. And that's sort of the response to everything. And now that doesn't mean that you're rainbows and unicorns all the time. The level 6 experience is one of peace and joy for just the experience of being human. Even I find when you're crying in a puddle on the floor, like that can be, there's this underlying sense of this is part of the human experience as well. So it's not that you never cry or never have challenges, but that is part of your experience as a human experience in this particular go round, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's a cool underlying deep sense of peace. And then level 7 is kind of the we are all one. So it's, I am the other person. I am everyone who's gathered here in this illusion called traffic, because it is an illusion that we just sort of made up to experience, explain our experience of the world. And it's the true I am energy. It's just a pure beingness energy. So those are different levels. Now, one thing that people they say, well, does that mean that am I trying to get to level 6 and 7 and just hang out there all the time? And no, you're not. This is not a race to level 7. It's not like you are trying to get through all the others to get to this place and sit there. It's the powers of the higher levels is the ability to tap into all the other levels at will. So the highest power of level 7, because level 7 is not necessarily the easiest to interact with the world in. Beingness, of course, is really great, and we are all one, and I totally believe that. But then, you're paying your bills, and you're like going to the grocery store, and so the level 7 power is, how do I want to show up when I pay my bills? How do I want to show up when I go to the grocery store? And I can tap into you can tap into level 7 energy, and you can access all the other levels below. If that makes sense. So you're gonna go up and down and up and down, and so it's really about learning what each level feels like for you, recognizing which level you're in, and maybe how long you've been there and what drove you there, and if you want to make a choice to try to access energy from a different level.
Okay, I really like that because it defines the different stages that you can go through. What role does being your own observer play in identifying these different levels and functioning in them?
I love that. So being your own observer is actually a quality of level 6 and level 7. So the ability to recognize what level you're in and make the conscious choice of whether you're going to stay in it or switch out of it. And again, no judgment. You get to decide. There's no, none of them is right or wrong. So that role is if you can really do that role, you are accessing level 6 and 7 energy. And it gives you the power to really change the course of your life. If you are kind of habitually unconsciously stuck in maybe more catabolic energy, like levels 1 and 2, and you never, I've had people say, well, wow, that thought of, is someone going, maybe they're going to the hospital. I've had someone say, I've never had that thought in my life. But now that's a possibility. And so maybe you have that thought the next time. So it gives you something to practice with. That's what I love about it too, is instead of saying like, oh, what could be another response? If you don't know, if you've never even thought about life at level 4, how are you supposed to come up with that response? So having some examples is helpful to like, okay, what would maybe they're going to the hospital response be for this situation in my life, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I actually answered your question. Did I answer your question?
No, I believe you did. I mean, irregardless, we are where we are in the conversation because it's very interesting. And I think it leads me to something else. How have you found your clientele going through those levels and adjusting to them, have they been able to move through that somewhat quickly, or has it been challenging, or is there a certain level that they kind of get stuck on? And, what sometimes can be, maybe, is there an example you might have that they were able to get out of that one level, that shift
Mhm.
gears?
Mhm, mhm. Yes, I find, it is obviously different for different people. Some people can access different levels a little easier, and again, it kind of depends on where your worldview is, what your experiences have been. I mean, we're
Mhm.
all there's an assessment that goes along with this. Actually, you can take the Energy Leadership Index assessment that actually kind of measures your current, a snapshot of your current, basically average resonating level of energy. And
Okay.
for people whose experience, everyone is in obviously the perfect place for them based on their
Right.
experiences. And so for people who've had experiences that have taught them that the world is a place of conflict, it
Mhm.
can be harder than to see like a level 5 perspective.
Mhm.
So I'd say generically, what I like to tell people is kind of assess kind of where you are, and try to look at a situation from 1 to 2 levels higher. Don't, if you're in level
Mm.
2, don't try to jump to level 5, because it's a little bit of a bridge too far. Just getting
Yeah.
to level 3 is helpful
Right.
to bridge that gap. So I would say, where people get stuck in midlife, a lot of times where people, certainly women, get stuck is sort of bouncing back and forth between level 4 and level 1.
Mhm.
Level 4 being in that caregiving energy, and coming from genuine caring,
Yeah.
but that can easily sort of plummet back to level 1 when you start to feel unappreciated for it. It's like you starting to be the overgiving and people pleasing. So
Yeah.
it starts off with all the best intentions, but then you start feeling like, oh, I'm not getting to take care of myself because I'm having to take care of everyone else and nobody appreciates what I do. That's level 1 energy. So now
Mhm.
you're in the, oh, woe is me, nobody appreciates what I do. And so you start to feel resentful and stuck, and that sort of bouncing back and forth can be challenging. But I
Mhm.
find that, trying to access level 5 with asking the question, what's the opportunity here, is what something that has I have found clients really benefit from.
Mhm.
And they, it's funny, when I did a lot of this in my Air Force job, and I would have people, something would be happening and they would say, Melissa, what's the opportunity here? And so people actually started to use the language. They would sort of laugh, but they would actually then start to find the opportunity. And it was like the little joke. It's like, oh, there's Melissa. Let's find the opportunity. Um, so, so I
Friendly
think
ribbing.
that finding the opportunity is probably one of the most powerful ways
Mm.
to shift that energy.
That's really good. And I also think that, like, depending on even when you do learn
Mhm,
to get to the higher levels, whatever
mhm,
they are,
mhm,
irregardless, there are certain things that show up in your life
mhm,
that can plummet you temporarily
mhm, mhm.
into a 1 or a 2 or a 3,
Yes.
whatever,
Mhm,
depending on how old that,
mhm,
I don't wanna say issue, but issue
mhm,
is, the
mhm,
thing that you don't really desire to have in your life.
mhm, mhm,
So, when those things happen, you then can think, wow, here I thought I've done all this work and blah, blah,
mhm,
blah, and I'm
mhm,
back to square one. And what I found for myself, because I used to do this, I used to
mhm.
think, oh, I thought I cleared this, what's
Right.
going on?
Mhm.
And until I realized that it was just a deeper level, a deeper
Yes.
layer of it. And so
Mhm,
sometimes that does put you back to, a
mhm,
different energy level that
mhm.
you're dealing with to get to the next
Yes.
layers to then, do you
Mhm.
find that that's true?
Mhm. Yes, and interestingly, the way you're describing it too is that, "Oh, I thought I had cleared this," is like it's like you experience level 1 and level 2 energy, and then you experience level 1 energy about feeling level 1 and level 2 energy, because that's the self-judgment, like, "Oh man,
Yeah,
I thought I
right.
had done this." That's a level 1 react
Yeah.
response, and that's a stress response. So I find that actually people usually end up in their stress response about their stress response.
That's great.
So you're saying it's a new level, and what I think certainly what I've experienced is that when I find myself, experience some maybe high catabolic energy, and I'm in level 1 and level 2, I can again see that from the level 6, like, oh yeah, I'm in the level 1 energy, and with time be a little less judgy of myself for being there, and say, okay, this is where we are right now. What do we want to do, right? What choice do you want to make next? And so even that starts to shift the energy of even being that level 6 recognition that level 1 and level 2 is what I'm experiencing right now.
Yes.
And maybe I'm just going to roll with that, or move on and make a different choice. And again, no judgment on what I decide to do.
Right. Yes. Yes. I think that pointing out that there's no judgment about it is really key, because we judge ourselves so much on everything we do. To have a broader understanding that I mean, of course, we all live by a certain standard and law of, not harming one another, etc.
Right.
And yet there is not necessarily a right or wrong way.
Right.
And so I'd like to kind of turn the table on this a little bit and ask you that when you look back through all the transitions you've been through, the astronaut dream, being in the military, your experience in running 7 continents, when you look back at those transitions through the lens of energy leadership, what do you see now that you couldn't see then?
Beautiful. When I look at that, I see that all of those were part of the same path. I think at the time I felt like they were disjointed, not necessarily all disjointed, but again, like the astronaut dream was earth-shattering at the time, and felt like the end of the world.
Right.
And now I can see from the level 6, level 7 perspective that was exactly the experience I needed to, again, like we talked about last time, to awaken into that higher purpose. So the running, everything contributed to this one path, and it's all part of one broader experience that is the experience my soul wanted to have coming to this planet, so that I could fulfill my purpose, which is to shine my light and inspire you to shine yours.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, Melissa. Thank you. What a powerful gift. What a powerful gift. So if a woman is listening right now, what's one thing that she could do this week to shift her energy? And what is like the one honest thing that you could tell her? Not that you wouldn't be honest, but
no,
that way, and I went,
I get it. No, that totally makes sense.
Okay.
I think it actually would be that level 5. I call it the $1 million question. What's the opportunity here? If you can meet any experience, and again, this can be very challenging if you're feeling really stuck in level 1 and level 2, but just practice asking yourself this question as often as possible. What's the opportunity here? And then see if you can list 3, and they can be off the wall. And here's the thing, you don't have to believe them. That's, I think, really, really important, is you don't have to believe another person's perspective, or you don't have to run off and do the thing that's the opportunity. But just knowing that there is an opportunity creates some space. And I'll just give one quick personal example. After I had been doing energy leadership for a while, I had gotten used to asking myself this question. I was actually doing a little mindfulness presentation for the first time outside of my Air Force job. And I was doing it at a wellness center. And so it was one of the first sort of in my own business little things that I did. And 3 people signed up. So I had my own feelings about that, but I was like, hey, 3 people signed up. It's not 0. So 3 people were there. But as I was talking to them before the event started, I realized that, so I was used to teaching for people who thought 1 minute of silence was like the longest minute of their lives, and in teaching mindfulness in kind of a government setting, and And then I met these people, and I realized even before we started that they all had way more mindfulness experience than I did. Like, I mean, so one of them had been on, 10-day silent retreats, multiple times. And I was like, old me would have just gotten all in my head, like, oh my gosh,
Right.
all these people have way more. What am I going to offer that's anything different? Like freaking out, right? So that lasted for about half a second, and then I literally, without even thinking about it, I immediately switched into what's the opportunity here, and I was thinking, well, okay, there's only three. We can just kind of sit down and have a fireside chat. We'll just talk. Maybe they can share their experiences, and maybe I'll have something new or unique to say that they'll experience, and we can just have a fun conversation. And I remember actually stopping and thinking at that point and thinking, oh, it's working. This energy leadership is working. Because I was like, wow, that just happened without even trying. And as it turns out, one of the women in that workshop is still a dear friend to this day.
Oh.
So yeah, it went really well. It was lots of fun, and it was not a big deal. But so that's the power of really getting in the habit of asking yourself that question and seeing the opportunity versus the dread and again, feel the dread, feel like we talked about last time, feel the fear and do it anyway, and see where it takes you.
Right. Yeah. I think it comes down to like really noticing, getting curious enough to see and be open to the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love that. I think this was a great conversation, and
Yeah,
we're
me
just
too.
scratching the surface. So
Mm-hmm.
what Melissa carries here in part 3 is going to be deep. And so we're moving into quantum and quantum human design. I'm really excited to hear a lot more about this and explore this with you. So if you've been curious about what that means and how it connects to everything we've talked about up to now, you don't want to miss our next segment. So thank you, Melissa, and I will see everyone shortly on our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Josette.